My mother-in-law brought a fake lawyer to steal our house, but she didn't know I was a real lawyer and had a plan of my own. I'm 35 male, and I've been a practicing lawyer for over a decade. I don't usually advertise what I do unless it's relevant, which has its perks. People assume I'm just another office worker until they step on my toes. And that's when they learn the hard way. This story is about my mother-in-law, who I'll call MIL, and her outrageous attempt to steal my house using a fake lawyer. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well for her. To set the stage, my wife and I bought our house about 3 years ago. It's a modest but beautiful place, and we worked hard to save up for it. MIL was less than thrilled when we moved in, mostly because she wanted us to live closer to her so she could help with everything. What she really meant, though, was that she wanted more control over our lives. She's always been the type who thrives on drama and manipulation, so I kept her at arm's length while my wife tried to maintain a polite relationship. Things were relatively calm until about 6 months ago, when MIL started dropping hints about her rights to the house. At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just being her usual self. But then, out of nowhere, she announced that she and her lawyer would be coming over to discuss some paperwork. Paperwork for what? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, just some family stuff. Nothing to worry about. My gut told me otherwise. I decided to play along, knowing I'd need to be ready for whatever scheme she was cooking up. The day MIL and her so-called lawyer showed up, I knew I was in for a show. The lawyer was a man in his 50s, wearing an ill-fitting suit and carrying a briefcase that looked older than I was. He introduced himself as Mr. K, but something about him screamed fraud. His handshake was limp, his demeanor unprofessional, and he avoided eye contact when I questioned him about his practice. They sat down at our dining table, and MIL wasted no time getting to the point. We've decided it's best if we transfer the house into my name, she said with a smug smile. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? It's for the family, she continued, as if I'd asked for clarification. This way, the property stays secure, and you won't have to worry about managing it. Mr. K here has prepared all the documents. You just need to sign. I stared at her, trying to process the audacity of what she'd just said. Why would I transfer my house into your name? That makes no sense. MIL's smile faltered. Because it's the right thing to do. You're young. You can always buy another house later. This one should be under my control, so I can make sure it stays in the family. I glanced at Mr. K, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. And you're okay with this? I asked him. As a lawyer, you think this is a legitimate request? He cleared his throat. Well, families often make arrangements like this for estate planning purposes. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. Really? What kind of law do you practice, Mr. K? General law, he stammered. Interesting, I said, my tone icy. Because I've never heard of a legitimate estate planning attorney suggesting a homeowner give away their house without any legal safeguards. What firm do you work for? His face turned pale. I'm an independent consultant. Right, I said, letting the sarcasm drip. Well, Mr. K, as a licensed attorney myself, I'd love to review these so-called documents you've prepared. MIL's jaw dropped. You're a lawyer? I gave her a sharp smile. Surprise. The room went silent as MIL and her lawyer exchanged nervous glances. Clearly, neither of them had anticipated this turn of events. I leaned forward, staring directly at Mr. K. Well, I asked. Let's see the paperwork. Surely you brought something legitimate for such a significant property transfer. Mr. K hesitated before reluctantly opening his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of documents that looked hastily assembled. No letterhead, no official seals, and several glaring typos. I skimmed through the first page, my irritation turning into amusement. This wasn't just bad, it was laughably bad. For starters, I said, holding up one of the papers, this document refers to my wife and me as the tenants. That's interesting since we own this house outright. And here, I pointed to another section. You've included a clause about monthly rent payments, which is completely irrelevant to a property transfer. Mr. K shifted uncomfortably. MIL, however, was doubling down. You're being difficult on purpose, she snapped. You know what this is about. It's a family arrangement. Stop nitpicking. Family arrangement? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Emile, this isn't some casual handshake deal. You're trying to con me into handing over my house. These documents wouldn't hold up in a middle school debate, let alone a court of law. Her face turned red with anger. You're overreacting. It's just a precaution to protect the family's assets. You'll still live here. It's not like I'm kicking you out. I let out a humorless laugh. Oh, I see. You want me to sign over legal ownership, but you'll let me live here. How generous of you. It was time to go on the offensive. I stood up and walked over to the kitchen counter, where I'd placed my own briefcase earlier. I'd anticipated some kind of scheme from MIL, so I'd prepared a little surprise of my own. From the briefcase, I pulled out my laptop and a folder of legal documents. I began, turning back to the table. It's funny you brought this up. I've actually been reviewing our property records recently. MIL froze. Why would you do that? Because I had a feeling you'd try something like this, I said bluntly. And guess what I found? A series of unauthorized inquiries into our property title, done in your name. Her eyes widened. That's ridiculous. I didn't. I held up a hand to silence her. Save it. The inquiries are traceable, and they show your IP address. You've been trying to find loopholes to claim ownership for months. Mr. K looked like he wanted to melt into his chair, but Emile wasn't giving up. So what if I looked into it? That doesn't mean anything. Oh, it means plenty, I shot back. It establishes intent. And now, with these laughable documents you've brought today, you've just provided me with even more evidence of your scheme. The tension in the room was palpable. Emile's mask of control was slipping, and for the first time, I saw panic in her eyes. She tried a new tactic, turning to my wife. Don't you care about your family? She pleaded. This is for all of us. Your husband is being unreasonable. My wife, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Mom, stop, she said firmly. This is insane. You don't get to manipulate us like this. You need to leave. Emile's face hardened. Fine. If you're going to side with him, then don't come crying to me when this all blows up in your faces. Emile's threat hung in the air, but I wasn't intimidated. If anything, her desperation only made me more determined to expose her scheme for what it was. As she stood to leave, I calmly stopped her. Hold on, I said, my tone cutting through the tension. We're not done here. You've crossed a line, and there are going to be consequences. She turned back to glare at me. Consequences? For what? You have no proof I did anything illegal. I smiled, tapping my laptop. Actually, I do. Aside from the unauthorized title inquiries, I've also been keeping track of your attempts to forge documents. Did you think I wouldn't notice that you've been emailing drafts of these fake contracts to Mr. K using your work email? Her face paled. That's private. You can't. Wrong, I interrupted. Once you involve my property, it stopped being private. And if you want to argue that point, feel free. I'd love to bring this to court. Mr. K, clearly realizing he was out of his depth, mumbled something about needing to step outside and practically ran for the door. Emile, however, wasn't done. She leaned over the table, her voice low and venomous. You think you're so clever, she hissed. But this isn't over. Oh, it's very much over, I said, standing my ground. You've not only tried to defraud me, but you've also involved a fake lawyer and left a paper trail a mile long. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? She glared at me but didn't respond. I let the silence linger before delivering the final blow. I've already contacted the authorities, I said. The title inquiries alone could be grounds for criminal charges, but I'm willing to settle this quietly if you drop your nonsense and stay out of our lives. Otherwise, I'll make sure this goes on your permanent record. Emile didn't say another word as she stormed out of the house. My wife and I sat in silence for a moment, the tension slowly dissipating. Finally, she turned to me. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. I knew Mom was difficult, but I didn't think she'd go this far. It's not your fault, I said, squeezing her hand. But we need to set boundaries. She's not going to stop unless we make it clear that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated. Over the next few weeks, I followed through on my plan to protect our property. I filed a formal complaint with the State Bar Association against Mr. K, exposing him as a fraud. He quickly disappeared from the picture, likely to avoid further legal trouble. I also worked with a title protection service to ensure MIL couldn't make any future claims on our house. MIL, unsurprisingly, tried to retaliate. She spread rumors among family members, claiming I was destroying the family and turning my wife against her. Most of them saw through her lies, but a few called to ask what was going on. I calmly explained the situation, and once they heard the full story, they were firmly on our side. The most satisfying moment came a month later, when I received a letter from MIL's workplace. She'd been terminated for misusing company resources, specifically the work email she'd used to orchestrate her scheme. Apparently, one of her co-workers had reported her after catching wind of what she was doing. When I told my wife, she sighed and shook her head. She brought this on herself, she said. Maybe now she'll finally learn. MIL's downfall didn't end with her job loss. After her termination, word got out among the extended family about what she had tried to pull. Many of them, especially those who had already been burned by her manipulative ways, began distancing themselves. She went from being the self-proclaimed matriarch to a pariah almost overnight. Still, she didn't go quietly. She tried one last desperate move, filing a bogus lawsuit claiming she had contributed financially to our house and therefore had a stake in it. The irony of her baseless claim wasn't lost on me. It was so poorly constructed that even my lawyer laughed when he saw it. "Do you want to handle this yourself?" my lawyer asked, clearly amused. "Oh, absolutely," I replied. "This one's personal." When the court date arrived, Emile strutted in with a noob lawyer, who was slightly more polished than Mr. K, but still unremarkable. I represented myself, confident that the evidence I'd gathered would dismantle her argument. As the session began, Emile's lawyer repeated her fabricated story about her supposed financial contributions, but it quickly fell apart under scrutiny. "Do you have any receipts, bank statements, or contracts proving these contributions?" I asked, cross-examining her in front of the judge. Emile stammered. "I didn't think I'd need to keep records. It was all verbal agreements." "Verbal agreements," I repeated, my tone dripping with skepticism. "So, you're asking the court to believe that you contributed to a six-figure property purchase without a single piece of evidence? Interesting." The judge didn't look impressed. "Ms. Emile's last name. Without tangible proof, your claim holds no merit. Do you have anything else to present?" Her lawyer scrambled to salvage the case, but it was futile. I then presented my own evidence. The unauthorized title inquiries, the fraudulent documents she'd tried to use, and the restraining order that had been issued against her just weeks earlier. By the time I finished, Emile was squirming in her seat. The judge delivered a swift ruling. Her lawsuit was dismissed, and she was ordered to pay my legal fees. As we left the courtroom, she shot me a glare that could have melted steel, but I just smiled. Justice had been served. In the weeks that followed, Emile retreated into obscurity. Without her job or her family's support, she had no leverage left. My wife and I focused on rebuilding our lives without her interference, setting firm boundaries to ensure she couldn't weasel her way back in. Occasionally, I'd hear through the grapevine that Emile was complaining about how I'd ruined her life, but I didn't care. She'd tried to steal from us, manipulate us, and destroy our trust, and she'd gotten exactly what she deserved. Looking back, I'm grateful for how everything played out. While Emile's antics were stressful, they reminded me of the importance of standing up for what's right and protecting the people you love. My wife and I came out of this stronger, and our house, our home, is now a symbol of everything we've overcome together. So, to anyone out there dealing with entitled in-laws or manipulative family members, take it from me. Don't back down. People like that thrive on intimidation, but they crumble when faced with facts and resolve. And if you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. The next one might just involve another showdown with an equally audacious villain. Stay tuned.